Hello and welcome to From the Be All End. We're back here with you, looking ahead to Saturday's opening Premier League game at Turf Moor with the Clarets facing Sunderland. I'm Simon Evans and with me is Chris Boden and Paul Woodhouse. Chris, let's get underway thinking a little bit about Sunderland because it is a game that already, as ludicrous as it sounds, second game of the season, feels a bit of a must-win.
I think all games against the sides, especially the sides you promoted with and the sides that we've sort of guessed that might be in and around us, sort of Brentfords and Wolves and that sort of outfit, we've got to be taking points off these sides quite simply, and it's not come at the greatest time, has it? With Sunderland's tails up and I said, albeit ourselves after a decent enough performance, but the gradual feel of things that you sort of you're asking Burnley fans, have we done enough in the window? They'd probably say no. Whereas I think Sunderland fans are cock a hoop with their dealings, and to start the way they did, I said last week, everyone would have wanted West Ham first. They just won them at home. They're just one of them sides that, especially, let's say, if you remember, when we were consistently in the Premier League, when Pellegrini was in charge, you just knew it was 3 points at home. At West Ham, it was a different kettle of fish, but you just knew, maybe a wet, windy night under the lights at Turf Moor against West Ham was as big a banker as you could get all season.
So you're not reading too much into that Sunderland win there?
Well, It's hard, isn't it? It's a terrific start from a club that's not been in the top flight for as long as they've been missing. A club that size, you really do miss them, and they're great people. It's a great club, and it's good to have them back because it's one of those great theatres of Premier League football. But I quite like that. In amongst all, they've basically signed a new team, but Dan Ballard, who unproven at that level, they stuck with Dan Ballard, who was a hero in the playoffs, and he scores a goal on his Premier League debut, and obviously could have been a Burnley player sort of three years ago now, and that fell through. So they've not sort of dispensed with all the old guard as of yet. But I said at the weekend, I think it's just for me, and I'm in Parker mindset here. Avoid defeat. If we can win it, great. If not, like the Leeds games and the Sunderland games at home, particularly last season, just make sure we come through that unscathed, really.
Yeah, it would be a blow, obviously, to start off with 2 defeats and a home defeat against a promoted team. But, Woody, it's a totally different team than the one we played last year in that game, of course, with James Trafford making that double penalty save. It's a totally different team. Granit Xhaka is the biggest name there. They seem to have signed a lot of players a bit like we did when we went up under company. The players that, when you look at their bios, you think, oh, that'll be interesting, see how he does in the Premier League, but we don't really know much about him.
No, and I didn't watch him over the weekend. Can you imagine the wailing and gnashing of teeth should we get beat this weekend? Because it hasn't been the greatest week, has it, from a Burnley perspective? But we didn't fare particularly well against them last year, did we? Obviously, we turned up with Utonji up front at their place and stank it out like there was we'd never played football before, and how we kind of got away by the skin of his teeth at home last year. And they were quick, they were direct, they had us on the back foot, and I'm going to assume they're going to play fairly similarly no matter who they've got. And if Spurs showed one thing, they showed exactly how every team should probably play against us this year with 3 at the back and having us 2 wing backs. It's try and get the ball in behind Hartman because obviously our left's more of attacking threat, and try and shift play over to the right where we aren't quite as effective. But they also similarly try to play push with their wing backs, don't they? So it could be a little bit of a to and fro with regards to that. But I'm with Chris. We don't want to be losing this one. We really don't, because I can't imagine what Saturday's going to be like.
Chris, Parker was saying in his press conference that Armando Breuer has had a good week. He's getting there. possibly in contention to start, I think was the gist of what he was saying. No stronger than that, anyway. When you look at that side that started at Spurs, we're assuming that he likes this system, but we don't know for sure that he's going to play at home against lower teams, do we? So are you thinking he's likely to stick with the same side and the same formation? Or do you think he has a plan which is like, when we go away against the big boys, this is what we're going to look like, and when we've got to get 3 points at home to Sunderland, we look like this? What's your sort of gut feeling on that?
Well, we're going to find out come sort of 2:00 when the team's announced, hopefully, unless it's one of those sort of lineups that you're puzzling who's going to be playing where, like under Vincent. But he's not been a horses for courses coach, really, has he?
No.
He's been last year was predominantly like this 4-2-3-1, regardless of who was available, who played, and we've seen the introduction of the three centre halves. So I would find it odd if he was to dispense with that early in the season. I've got a feeling that he wants to play this throughout the campaign. But as you say, a home against a team that you'd expect to be down alongside ourselves. Does he revert to the 4-2-3-1 and get the likes of Marcus Edwards into his side? Because we do need that sort of that creative genius that's been lacking on occasion. But you could do without Son in that situation and play Walker in his natural role. And let's say Walker, the amount of the ground he covers, the pace he covers it at, we can almost play as a wing back while as a right full back. He's a cheat, isn't he? The cheat code. He gives you that recovery pace that we've never had.
I mean, that's the thing I was thinking about Kyle Walker after that Spurs game, and we talked about it a bit and said, his legs clearly haven't gone. He looked, and I'm thinking, hold on a minute. He looked like Kyle Walker to me. He looked like the bloke who plays for Man City in England. How have we ended up with Kyle Walker? Because he's not gone. I don't think he's gone. I mean, I might be regretting this in, a couple of days, but he looks to me like a player who, okay, he's got a bit more miles on the clock, but there's still a lot there for me.
It seems to me a lot of this seemed to be down to the Senegal game in the summer, didn't it? Not maybe the sort of spring summertime where he was caught out and Senegal scored. He was almost on the back foot, but I was finding those situations the striker's often more alert, and you're sort of desperate to score the goal, and you're defensively you see which way the ball bounces almost. But I don't think we've signed Kyle Walker to play as a right centre back throughout the season. I think we've signed Kyle Walker to play as Kyle Walker, as a right fullback.
And I think we saw on Saturday that we don't want necessarily Kyle Walker to be marshalling at a back three. I think while his legs haven't gone, that his footballing brain has never been exactly the best, has it? You've seen him leave a man playing for like England, whatever, looking slightly confused. And there were a couple of those moments on Saturday, and I don't know whether he's the man who you want to be like relying on marshalling a back three, but you do want him bombing up and down the right with that recovery pace. So playing where he's best, obviously.
So are you leaning towards switching back to a 4?
Not necessarily, because I don't think Steve and Ekdal will work in a 4. It's a problem, innit? It requires somebody. I think it requires bringing somebody in.
Yeah, we've got about a week and a bit to go, haven't we?
Don't panic.
There's ways around it, isn't it? I mean, like you say, you can, Ugo Chukwu can drop in there, Cullen can drop in there, Walker could, for the last how many years he's been playing almost as an inverted, fullback for Manchester City at times in that, right next to the right centre back. But as we saw with the first goal, Steve doesn't want to be out on that left hand side. He wants to be in his natural role in the centre as well. So, I don't know. I think against the real big hitters, I think we will try and be hard to beat and go with the 3 centre halves. But whether he classes Sunderland as one we can take the game to them, or are we putting the shutters up?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the option, isn't there, of like keep with a system that's been familiar from the last few weeks, get to half time. And we saw that quite a lot last season, didn't we, where the mentality seemed to be get to half time and then go and win it in the second half. You could see a situation where he starts off with 3 centre halves. Son comes off after 50 minutes. Kyle Walker goes out to right back. We bring Edwards on. And we start going at him. I mean, for me, the idea of having Edwards and Kyle Walker coming at you down one side, that's something that we shouldn't be dismissing lightly.
Exactly.
I don't think.
Yeah, that sounds quite frightening, doesn't it?
Especially if Hannibal's in there as well. And if he's shuttling across the pitch from in to out. Like, his legs. I mean, he might run himself into the ground after sort of 65, 70 minutes and seems to come off at around that mark when he plays every week. But that sort of energy and the pace, we've let one pace man go out the window. This afternoon that hasn't been getting a look in, albeit. But those 3, I say, give us ability to get up the pitch, and give us that. Well, it just smacks of Premier League quality. Those 3, I think.
We've got the choice as well at the other end of the field. If Breuer is fit, does he come straight in then if he's ready to go? Did Lyle Foster, seemed to be a sort of division of opinion amongst Burnley fans about how well Foster did against Spurs. I think quite a few of us said he made a useful contribution in different ways, but perhaps not being the attacking threat you'd want from a number 9. Woody, if Breuer is closed, does he start straight away? And there's Fleming there as well, who's had another week, who's been recovering from a little pre-season knock, and seems, you would presume, a week has done him good as well. Do you expect change there, or did Foster do enough?
Foster's turned into one of those players, hasn't he, where you've got a considerable amount of people. It wouldn't matter if you banged in an hat-trick, they'd still claim he was a shithouse. There are just some people who have written Foster off. And the point is, Breuer will come into that side and he won't score a shit ton of goals either. But he will be given the chance that Foster necessarily wouldn't. And I thought Foster had a very solid game for what he did. There isn't a Scott Parker side that he's ever played somebody out and out up top to be a striker. Remember, this is a guy who dropped Mitrovic to play like a fullback up top. This is the kind, you've got to remember how Scott Parker wants to play. And he's not going to have somebody, baby lining just to tap stuff in because we're making a shitload of chances. So I think it's one of those. I think we're probably quite fortunate to have both Foster and Breuer. And I don't think it matters. I think they're both going to figure at some point on Saturday. And I think Foster's done enough to start on Saturday.
Do you agree, Chris?
I think if you ask me, is Breuer the better footballer, the better all-round centre forward? 100%. But based on his contribution Saturday, and we're still unsure, aren't we? I mean, the sort of feeling was last week that Breuer was a good couple of weeks away. Well, he's only had a week on the grass as such. So to me, it sounds a little premature for us to be expecting him to sort of march into that starting side and start bossing things. I think he might be sort of eased into the equation, and Foster will get the start based on his performance last week. And Fleming's another. We don't know how much he's got in the tank either, do you? So we don't want to rule him out after his performances last season.
No, I mean, we don't know, do we? We don't know where Breuer is fitness wise. Parker, I think the words were, possibly in contention. So, what does that mean? We will see when that team sheet comes out. It's a big game. It has been, the build-up to it has a little bit amongst fans online anyway, been somewhat overshadowed by the club's announcement 3 days before the start of the season. These quite radical changes in terms of access to the ground, obviously with the cricket field stand changes and the tunnel changes that we've talked about before. But to actually see those maps that came out and people being told which way they've got to go and walk around the ground quite a lot, it's annoyed a lot of people. I mean, can't remember for how long it is since I've seen people raging. People, you can tell pensioners as well, raging on up the Clarets. Woody, it seems like just an unnecessary situation to find ourselves in just before the first home game of the season, when there should be all this enthusiasm that people are getting riled up about what route they're taking to the ground.
It is ridiculous, really, and it's the thing is, it's a fairly, well, it's a very big change, isn't it? Nobody will know exactly where they're supposed to be kind of going, and everybody will be getting kettled to make sure they can either, 1, get a pint in the fan zone, 2, avoid Burnley Cricket Club, 3, try and pop them into that new bar, whatever they're building up there, as well as pick up a new hat or a scarf at some point. And it seems that it's like directing all fans in one particular direction, even though they're saying it's going to, look slightly better on the telly.
But what's going to look better on the telly? When the bus arrives?
That's what they're trying to claim, isn't it? Yeah, there might be a few fans there slightly irate that they'll pretend they're having a good time.
We're not getting Liverpool turning up at Anfield for a European Cup quarter final, are we?
No.
If someone could explain to me why they're making these changes, like I say, because it's not going to enhance the atmosphere, is it? It's not going to enhance anything.
But what is, like, let's try and be fair about it. What is there that's going to enhance the atmosphere? Presumably they think having the tunnel in the corner and moving the home fans across to the Bob Lord stand and putting the away fans next to the long side, presumably they think that's going to improve the atmosphere. I don't see it myself, but...
Well, it's not, is it? It's simply not going to improve the atmosphere, especially when people are like having to disappear 15 minutes before the end of the game just to avoid, getting crushed on the way out, etc. You're just going to have people leaving earlier, more people grumbling during the game, and calls for additional drums. That's it. Let's not take it on club face value in terms of what they're saying, because it's quite apparently bullshit. They aren't making all these changes without them thinking there's going to be some form of revenue uptick. Otherwise, you wouldn't be pissing off guaranteed 100% of literally everybody. I haven't seen a good word as yet about this from anybody. Nobody's giving it the benefit of the doubt. There's nobody. So it's, give it a couple of weeks,
So,
boycott whatever new lager then. Yeah.
The Lazio game, it was like, they're here. Players are on pitch. And obviously it's a friendly game. But you're so used to them coming out of the opposite. I mean, we've got used to them. I mean, they used to come out from behind the goal, didn't they? They moved that to, between the long side and the cricket field stand, which, I mean, we got that singing section in the cricket field stand that, to me, has been terrific. It's been a great addition to the atmosphere. I mean, I've been in there, and I didn't sit down once. And that's not me being a hooligan. It's because everyone in there was stood up, and everyone was singing for 90 minutes. And it was like, I go back to before my reporting days when I was like a 18, 19-year-old kid, stood on the long side, right up to the barriers next to no man's land. Between
Chris Boden, the Suicide Squad years.
But it was that sort of time where, I mean, the long side would be now and then. You sang for 90 minutes, win, lose, or draw every week, and it was what really got me into it. It's why I loved coming to Burnley so much. And then we're dismantling that. We're going to move the home fans into another area, move the away fans, and the logistics of moving. I don't know. It's been asked for years, hasn't it? Can we get home fans in the cricket field stand? And it was always poo-pooed. But I mean, to be fair, logistically they did that and it worked. But why are we tampering further? Because it was flat 2 years ago at Premier League because we were 3-0 down after half an hour in every home game, basically. And it wasn't flat at all last season. It's just, I don't know. I think they'll find. See, if Burnley are competitive, so we like being underdogs, and I think they'll find that the atmosphere is right up everyone's street. If we're, the fans know when the team needs a lift and when they're giving their all, and I think they'll find that more often than not every week this season.
Yeah, I'm not sure the location of the fans is what makes the atmosphere. No, I'm really not. But I mean, it would if we had a proper home end. If the whole of the cricket field stand were Burnley fans, I could see that becoming something different because we haven't had a proper home end since the long side disappeared. But moving from one side to the other, I don't know how that's gonna work, and whether it's worth all this hassle that they're going through of having people walking all the way around the stadium and all sharing one entrance. It seems it's causing a lot of problems for people who, we're fortunate enough that probably isn't a big deal for us to have to walk for an extra 500 yards, half a mile around the ground, but that's not the case for everyone. And there was a guy on up the Clarets. I read his message and it really hit me, actually. He said, I'll read it out. This is quite devastating for me. I have osteoarthritis in both knees in various stages. I've followed Burnley since the days of Jimmy McIlroy and presently pay for my son, daughter, grandson and granddaughter's tickets. Good for him. My wife has always dropped me off at the cricket field path and picked me up after on Belvedere Road. There's absolutely no chance I can walk round Turf Moor and the cricket field. I've always dreaded the walk up to Belvedere Road as it is. I've had a walking stick stepped on many a time, even on that comparative short walk. I assume now I can just cancel my direct debit without penalty. I'm devastated by this, but I can't put myself in a ridiculous situation. Why the hell have they done this for? I mean, that's a guy, you presume in his 80s, paying for all his family to go on.
Considering giving it all up for that.
It's
incredible. Yeah.
I mean, he can afford an Uber helicopter if he's buying 5 season tickets for anybody, but that's besides the bat. But I mean, you compare it to what Sunderland have done, and for everybody over the age of 80, 85, is it, or whatever, they're giving free season tickets this season. And what are we doing? We're forcing him to walk fucking, a further mile round the turf just to be able to get there. That's taking the piss.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some sort of conspiracy theories with people thinking, it's been done for this reason and revenue and all this. It just looks like a half-arsed idea to me, where they just haven't thought through the consequences of it properly. We want to do this, and, you wonder if these ideas come from the top and somebody gets told, make this happen, and then there's all these knock-on effects, which is, well, then people can't walk down this way, and presumably there's been some security and health and safety meetings about this. I also wonder, what's gone on with the fan advisory board, because we hear a lot about how that exists to deal with exactly these kind of things, fan experience. And we know they don't have a veto, and we know there's all sorts of restrictions on what they can say, but have they been consulted on this? Have they agreed to this? We don't know. It's an absolute joke, is that?
But it's almost like we can't have opposition fans mingling. And it's not the 1980s, and I'm sure there will be the odd bit of, a bit of baiting back and forth, depending on the result. But I've seen, you don't get many away fans in the fan zone inside the grounds of Turf Moor, whereas the cricket club, who we'll mention later on, that how many times you walk past there and there's loads of away fans and everyone's sort of drinking and having a chat and getting on, before the game, as we should, Let's have a chat about how things are going to pan out. Let's have a drink together, and as soon as kick-off goes, it's hell for leather. Everyone remembers the Aberdeen fans, and it was magnificent.
Oh, it was unbelievable that night.
Absolutely magnificent. I mean, I've spoken about the actual inside the ground that night, and especially the away game as well. But where they congregated at the cricket club, and it was a festival. It was fabulous. But let's not So I'm not to go too much into politics, but let's also look after our neighbours as well. To be wary if we're taking any footfall away from the cricket club, let's not be taking any footfall away from sort of boozers in and around Turf Moor, etc. So Burnley want to make as much money as possible on a match day, and if it goes towards us seeing a tip-top side out there every week, then there's nobody complaining. But let's look after our friends and neighbours as well.
Well, we did ask Burnley Cricket Club, because there's been a lot of reports and rumours about whether or not they'd be able to even operate in these circumstances with that area that you access the cricket ground being, it seemed, blocked off in some way. But Paul Mortimer sent us a video in to explain what they're doing. It sounds like they're doing a little bit more than they usually do, but let's hear what Paul had to say.
Hi lads, it's Paul on behalf of Burnley Cricket Club. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about the Cricket Field Fan Park. There's been a lot of noise online this week, I think, about the access routes before and after games next door at the football club. Obviously there is a bit of confusion and not a lot of details, and I think some of the things that were missed out is that Belvedere Road is still open for Burnley fans. You can still get on foot to the cricket club, up and down, and you can drive to the cricket club still from the sort of fire station end of Belvedere Road, or the side streets. The main reason for wanting to get in touch is the Cricket Field Fan Park that we're launching. We've been working hard to expand the offering we have on football match days. We want 100% want all the Clarets coming in that we've always had, and more. It's a home and away fans place, always has been. And we're doing more to entertain sort of kids and families this year. We've expanded the food offering. We've got Serrano's pizzas from Padium, really popular place, and Ground Up from Rottenstall Market, doing smash burgers and cheese melts. We've got La Sicilia desserts and the food truck there. The Ninja Coffee guys are coming, and we've got Hafner's pies available in the clubhouse as well, as always. We know they're always popular. We've got drinks offers, extra bars set up, so it's going to be well worth the visit. And we were putting all these plans in place before the announcements from the football club. So we want to welcome as many home fans as possible to come and enjoy the atmosphere. We always get good reports of home and away fans mixing, so we want to keep that going. And also there's plenty more for the kids this year as well. So there's always been the football games on the outfield, but that can still continue obviously. But we've got blow up football pitches and challenges and games like the speed gun and target goals. So open 10:30 a.m. for the Sunderland game, and we'll open early for all home games as well, whatever day they're on. Cheers for the plug. Keep up the good podcast. See you, lads.
Yeah, so, I mean, bit of misinformation perhaps, because I must admit, when I started reading stuff online, I thought you wouldn't even be able to walk to the cricket ground. That bit was closed off, but apparently you can do. But it is, I mean, Woody, we played Lancashire League cricket, at varying levels. It is, we see Woodhouse Cricket Club obviously doing well. Nelson Cricket Club had a big event last weekend with their beer and gin day down at Seedale. I mean, cricket clubs, Lancashire cricket clubs these days, survive on this kind of money, don't they?
Well, they're dying on their arse, aren't they? I mean, for them, this is a Worsley Cup final every other weekend, isn't it? That's an appreciable amount of revenue that they're going to be bringing in. And so conversely, it's an appreciable amount of revenue that Burnley think that they will be able to obtain by what it is they're doing, because it's obviously they're putting quite a lot of effort into this Burnley Cricket Club fan experience, and it's like you say, and like Chris was saying, there's all these. I mean, they've lost the 110 club. And it's about being able to keep these little community places open, because they're going to be there once Alan Pace is pissing about, whether it be in Espanyol, Mallorca, various parts of Italy, no matter what. And it's going to be left to the community to have to still be there and support Burnley once they've, done their custodial piece of looking after the place. And so I think it's a little bit short-sighted not to work with other folks round and about who are also trying to provide a fan experience, because it's not entirely, focused on the club. People have the routines. People do what they're going to do, and people do what they want to do. And I just think it's a little bit of a sour taste.
It is really, and I think, like Chris, I mean, if you look at the money, that money for Burnley Cricket Club, and I'm not telling anyone where to go for a pint. People can choose. We're not telling people what to do. But if you look at that money for the cricket club that people spend and the away fans spend there, that helps pay for a professional for next season for the club. It helps keep their junior programs going and so on. And then if we look at the pubs and bars around Burnley, the Royal Dyche has done, there's been an unbelievable transformation of that place over the last few years, and it's become part of the community now. It maybe used to be have a slightly different status once upon a time, but it's become a place now where people from out of town, when they come to Burnley, they want to go to the Royal Dyche because of the name and the connection and everything. It's been on television a lot, and all the other little bars that we see, great little places like the Bridge and so on. I mean, towns in Lancashire and the north of England are really struggling to maintain some sort of life, and Burnley's actually not doing too badly in that respect because of the connection with football. And yet you look at how much for Burnley's budget as a Premier League club, with the amount of money that comes in from TV, the amount of money that comes in from buying and selling players and stuff, a pint or two here and there makes absolutely no difference to Burnley's budget, really, doesn't it? I mean, if the fan zone does well or doesn't do well, that doesn't really make any difference for Burnley. So I don't think the club should have that sort of competitive attitude towards other places, no?
No, it's not just that. I mean, it's like it's the names there that Paul mentioned. The pizzas from Padiham, burgers from, was it Rottenstall, he said, and the coffee vans, I believe that's a local concern and things like that. So there's 4 or 5 local companies alone there who are trading their wares as well. Coming together, they're making a few quid. The cricket club's obviously making a few quid. I mean, we know. I mean, Lower House. So if people know it, when I was at the Burnley Express, I covered Lower House, and I obviously wanted both Burnley and Lower House to prosper, but ultimately I became like a sort of resident Lower House as such, and I think they might be closing in on another league title within the next sort of month or so, which would be fabulous. But I like to see Burnley and Lower House prosper, and if Burnley get a few quid from their this sort of thing that's been a huge success over like going back a decade or so. We'll say Lower House have their ways. I mean, the clubhouse and everything that goes on there, the bands they have on there, the 2020 and all this. You see the results.
Unbelievable, them 2020 nights down there, aren't they?
Mm.
It's sort of the way that the youth setup that's prospered there over the last 20 years or so now, and it's gone from strength to strength. But Burnley have this history, don't they, of providing county and one particular international cricketer. But it's great to see them both do, and we don't want to take away from that. We don't want to take away from the Bridge and the Dyche, and there's a couple of other sort of what would you call crafty pubs have opened up. The Park View's done a great deal as well, haven't they? Yeah, if you look there these days, it is a terrific compared to what it used to be. I mean, if you go back 10 years, it's absolute chalk and cheese. It's fabulous. My dad, if my dad comes on every now and again, he always parks at the cricket club, so that's cash in their pocket. It's nice to get a pint wherever. But let's sort of spend our money around.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think.
How about being competitive with actual beer prices? As opposed to charging £94.20 for some weird in Portuguese lager that nobody's ever heard of.
I must admit, I don't think I've ever actually had a pint inside a football ground.
It's very rare, isn't it?
Yeah. It's never really appealed to me. You know, when I've gone to games as a fan rather than working, it's never really appealed to me. But having a pint before or after a game in a pub, yeah. But you know, stood on a concrete slab underneath, you know, underneath the stand, doesn't really appeal to me that much. But as I say, we're not telling people what to do. Some people like getting into ground early and having a couple in the ground as well, which is also, you know, fair enough. But I just hope that they don't get into that sort of Bob Lord mentality of like, you know, that money's there's no in that for us, you know, even though, you know, in an American accent, you know, I just hope they don't go down that path because we all know, like when Burnley were in the dark days, going back to the origin name of this podcast, you know, we all grew up at a time watching Burnley when they were very few fans. And it was the local community which kept the club alive, wasn't it? So, you know, let's not go down this path of, you know, if the money's not coming into the club, then we're not going to help and we're going to make things awkward. Again, we don't know if these, you know, plans are designed to shaft Burnley Cricket Club, but certainly you got that feeling that it's not exactly helping them. So, last thing before we knock off from this one. We did a little YouTube special during the week. Greavesy got a couple of the guys together, Justin and Daz, and they did a half-hour special when the news came out that Luca Koleosho was about to be loaned to Espanyol. The reports looked credible. The lads got together. We're going to do a little bit of that now and then and just pop on YouTube, not to bombard our regular audio listeners with content during the week, but that was something we decided to do online. We're also doing a rapid reaction, which is after the games, going onto YouTube and just a quick 10-15 minute reaction to the game. Obviously, you still get the full debrief as a podcast in audio form, but check out our YouTube channel if you haven't done yet. There's quite a lot on there, and we'll be putting shorter videos on and sort of building it out over time as well. But a good chunk of you have already subscribed, so thanks very much for that. But just on Koleosho, it's happened now. That chat midweek was about the likelihood of it happening and what people thought about it, but he's gone now. And I must admit, I had a little chuckle. I was looking on Twitter, and the Espanyol fans are wondering why they're getting a Burnley reject, and if that's what this entire business is all going to be about. I mean, Woody, he's gone. I mean, he's not a player I can say I'm happy to see leave Burnley, but what's your sort of feelings now it's actually been a done deal? He's out for a year.
I was thinking about this is another. I do feel a little bit sorry for like ALK with regards to this, because it's damned if you do and damned if you don't. Remember this time last year, everybody was going berserk. They were about to down tools. If Koleosho was one that they were going to let go for 20 million, that was it. That would have been the straw that broke the camel's back.
The Wolves did.
Whereas this season, it's like shit. They didn't get 20 to 40 million from the useless bastard, you know. And it's one of those things, isn't it? And we've seen that from that player that had so much potential, who started obviously the first half of the season, got that knock, and then never really seemed to push on, that he's obviously not in Scott Parker's plans, is he? He's not quite what we'd probably consider a Scott Parker player, but he has to get some game time in his legs somewhere, and I would have thought going back to Espanyol might be a very good move for him.
Yeah, we'll see if he gets the game time there.
Yeah. Because
the problem with these loans is sometimes that happens and they go and they get that game time. Sometimes they go somewhere else and the same happens as what the situation was at their parent club, and they come back and their value has dropped even further then. But are you sad to see him go, Chris, or you think it's a smart move that?
Yeah, I am sad to see. I mean, how often do you have, an Italian under-21 international flourishing at that level, well thought of by the setup over there, and you know he was terrific in that first sort of half season or so before his knee injury. You know, he's come back and started the season ever so well, and then found life tough up against teams that were banking in every week against Burnley. And he didn't really get a kick once Marcus Edwards reared his head, sort of thing. But I think it makes sense for him to go and get game time. But I think now, like you said, if he doesn't get a game, then it's not worked, and he comes back and his value is whatever. if he goes to Espanyol and rips it up, he ain't coming back to Burnley. He's going to make us a few quid in the process, so great. But you know, I just don't think we'll see him again. I don't see, which is, to me, you know, a 20-year-old kid. I think there's a sort of sense of duty in terms of development there. Let's develop the kid, and if he develops at Espanyol, fair play to them. You know, they've probably generated a few quid for us, but if he does well there, he's not going to. You know, I've ripped up La Liga. I'm coming back to Burnley and being relegated to the Championship, possibly again. You know.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? But I tend to think that he's gone now. I tend to think that's it. And best of luck to him. You know, he's still got possibility to be a US international as well. So who knows? He could have a great season at Espanyol, force his way into Maurizio Pochettino's team, and be playing in the World Cup next year. You know, stranger things have happened, and to be honest, I hope that happens for him, because he'd be a good addition to that American team as well. But we will be back, as I said, on Saturday. We'll do a rapid reaction after the game on YouTube only, quick 15 minutes talking about it. And then you'll get your full debrief on Monday. Do subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, or whatever you use as well. It's a lot easier when you just get those notifications. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on this episode, and up the Clarets.